Should you do calisthenics or should you lift weights? Which is better? That's the topic of today's video. Hey guys, this is Alex Robles from the White Coat Trainer, and today we're going to talk about calisthenics versus weightlifting. Which should you pick? So in order to start this discussion, I think it's important to go over the benefits and the cons of each of the different types of training. So calisthenics has 4 major benefits. The very first one is it's free. You don't need any fancy equipment, you don't need a gym membership, you don't need to commute to and from the gym. You can do calisthenics from the comfort of your own home. Which brings us to the second major benefit. The second benefit is that calisthenics provides a greater degree of freedom. Is the gym closed? No problem. You're away on vacation? No problem. The hotel gym sucks? No problem. You know how to use your own body weight to get a great workout no matter what. The third benefit is that calisthenics will improve your athleticism and your coordination. In order to perform a lot of these exercises, you need to move your entire body as one unit. Take a pull-up for example. You literally have to bring your entire body up as you're clearing your chin above the bar. Contrast that to the lat pull down, which is where you sit into a fixed machine and then you actively pull the weight down towards you. Which do you think is providing you greater benefit? In addition, some of the more advanced calisthenic exercises are going to improve your mobility significantly. Take a handstand for example. You need to be able to get a significant amount of shoulder extension in order to perform this exercise correctly. Weights, on the other hand, can make you more tight and stiff if you don't program correctly. And last but not least, the fourth benefit of calisthenic exercises is that almost all of these exercises will train your core to an extent. As I mentioned before, you have to move your entire body to do these exercises. As a result, you have to be able to maintain a tight core and a neutral spine in order to accomplish pretty much all of these exercises. Now, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There are some disadvantages to calisthenics as well. Let's go over the top 3. There is going to come a time where basic push-ups and basic pull-ups are going to become a little too easy. In order to make them a little bit more difficult, you're going to need to understand how levers work. After all, you can only lift so much weight. If you weigh 150 pounds, you only have 150 pounds to lift. So in order to make these exercises more challenging, you need to change the lever. In other words, you need to put your joints at a different angle so that it's not advantageous for them to perform the lift. Take the basic push-up for example. If you do it with your hands at the level of your chest, your shoulder is perfectly in line with your hands, making it a very advantageous position to lift in. However, as you start to widen your hands, or even bring your hands closer together, or you can even start lowering your hands closer to your waist, your shoulder is no longer in line. So therefore, it changes the lever of the exercise and it makes it more difficult. So you need to be able to understand this very important concept to make calisthenic exercises more challenging. That brings us into the second disadvantage of calisthenic exercises. As you start changing the lever, some of these progressions can be drastically more difficult than the one before it. Sometimes the jump in intensity from one variation to the next can be so big that you can't even perform a single repetition. With that said, there are still numerous variations that you can choose from and many different ways that you can progress. Lastly, the third disadvantage is that calisthenic leg exercises aren't anywhere near as comprehensive as leg exercises as you can do with weights. Your legs are powerful. There is going to come a time where just performing squats and lunges are just going to be way too easy. Even the one-legged squat. Once you master the one-legged squat, there isn't much more that you can do in terms of increasing the intensity of these exercises. So if you want to build a muscular lower body, then weights are actually necessary. Okay, that's enough about calisthenics. Now let's talk about weightlifting. What are the benefits and disadvantages of lifting weights? There are 3 major benefits that weightlifting has over calisthenic exercises. The first one is that weights are easy to scale. What does this mean? In order to make any exercise more challenging, all you have to do is add weight onto the bar. 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. That will drastically increase the intensity of any exercise without you having to change a single thing other than the weight. The second major benefit that we alluded to earlier is that you can develop a very powerful lower body using weights. There is no comparison to squats and deadlifts. And I'm talking particularly using a barbell squat and a barbell deadlift. There are going to be some people who cannot perform these exercises for whatever reason, but there are numerous variations that you can choose from. in order to get the same stimulus. And last but not least, weights allow you to isolate muscles. This is particularly important if someone has had a history of any injury, such as a rotator cuff tear or some kind of shoulder injury, and you need to isolate and strengthen the small muscles around the shoulder joint. With calisthenics, this is very difficult to do. Now, we'll cover the major disadvantages of weightlifting exercises in relation to calisthenics. The first, you need a gym. You need a gym that has access to a lot of expensive equipment. A power rack, a bench press, barbells, plates, and dumbbells. If you have these in your house, kudos to you. The second thing is that in order to get the most out of weightlifting exercises, it is important that you understand how functional human anatomy works. Calisthenic exercises, by default, are mimicking functional human movement patterns. Weights, on the other hand, are unnatural to us. Our body wasn't designed to pick up a dumbbell and start curling it. We didn't evolve to do that. Therefore, in order to get the most out of our training, we need to use weights and mimic the exercises that we're doing with calisthenics. For example, a push-up and the bench press is the same exercise. They are both training the exact same human movement pattern, but one is using your body weight, another one is using a barbell. And then the third major disadvantage of weights is that you better make sure that you know what you're doing. Your form has to be adequate in order to do barbell and weight exercises appropriately. I'm not saying that you don't need proper form for calisthenics exercises as well. However, you can do a lot more damage using weights than you can with calisthenics. So make sure that you're doing every exercise properly. We have numerous videos on our website so that you can make sure that your form is adequate. So we'll go over a couple of other points to help you decide whether you should do calisthenics or weightlifting. The first one is progressions. In which type of training is it easier to make progressions in? Weightlifting takes the cake. As I mentioned before, you can always add 5 pounds more to the bar and make the exercise more challenging. With calisthenics, on the other hand, you have to know how to change the levers of the exercise in order to keep on progressing. Of course, this is not the only way to progress. You can increase the time under tension, which means that you're doing the exercises in a much slower tempo. You can add pauses, so on and so forth. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're only going to focus on the simplest way to progress, which is adding more weight or changing the variation of the exercise. The second factor that we're going to talk about is variety. Which type of training provides more variety? It's actually a draw. You can do a ton of different variations using weights, and you can do a ton of variations doing calisthenic exercises. Again, we'll use the simplest example, the bench press. You can do a normal touch and go bench press, a pause bench press, a close grip, an incline, a decline, a wide grip, so on and so forth. With push-ups, you can do close grip push-ups, wide grip push-ups, feet elevated push-ups, pause push-ups, hand release push-ups, planche push-ups, so on and so forth. The third thing that we're going to talk about is training flexibility, which provides you with more flexibility and freedom. This is obvious, calisthenic exercises, which you can do anytime, anywhere. With weightlifting, you need to have access to some sort of equipment. The next point is ease of learning. Which one is more beginner friendly? I think calisthenics has to take the cake here. It is much easier to learn how to master your own body weight before you move on to external resistance. You can always scale back all of the calisthenic exercises to a very beginner-friendly variation to help introduce you into exercising. Now, that's not saying that you can't do this with weights as well. You can. Weights is also a very beginner-friendly type of activity, and you can always start off with an empty barbell or very light dumbbells to start learning. But I think calisthenics edges out weights because it is much easier to learn these exercises with very little instruction, as again, they are natural human movement patterns. What about in muscle isolation? Weights takes the cake here. Of course, you can choose to isolate very specific muscles. For example, the posterior deltoid. Calisthenics exercises tend to be more compound in nature, meaning that they train multiple muscle groups all at once. Therefore, it is more difficult to isolate any individual muscle. What about functional strength? I think calisthenics takes the key here in functional strength. As I mentioned before, you're doing a lot more natural human movement patterns with the push-ups, with the pull-ups, the handstands, the squats, etc. You can definitely build functional strength with weights as well. But this is only if you program correctly and you're doing all of the exercises that mimic the calisthenic exercises, such as the bench press, the overhead press, the squat, and the deadlift. Unfortunately, the pull-up has no barbell equivalent. You have to learn how to do pull-ups. The second to last point is building muscle. Weightlifting takes the cake here. You are not going to be able to build as much muscle with calisthenics as you can with weights. However, that's not to say that you can't build muscle with calisthenics. You certainly can. Just take a look at some of the Olympic gymnasts and take a look at YouTube and see some of the other calisthenic athletes. These guys and gals are muscular and they're ripped. And as I mentioned before, you are not going to build very muscular legs doing calisthenic exercises only. So it is important to incorporate some type of lower extremity weight-bearing exercises. And then the last point is losing weight. Which is better, calisthenics or weightlifting for helping you to lose weight? And I think this is a draw. As you should all know, exercise is a very poor way of losing weight. It can certainly help, but it is by far one of the least important factors to losing weight. What is the most important factor? Your diet. You will never, ever be able to out-exercise a bad diet. With that said, any type of exercise can help boost your weight loss journey. And the best type of exercise to do this is HIIT, high intensity interval training. And you can do this type of training with calisthenics or with weights, or you can mix it up. So to sum it up, you should do calisthenics if 1. You prefer to work out at home or you do not have access to a gym. 2. You prefer to use very minimal equipment. 3. You desire to build functional strength in all of the basic human movement patterns. 4. You do not care about developing a lot of muscle in the lower body. And 5. You are an absolute beginner and you desire to start off with just the basics. Now, on the other hand, you should do weight training if, number 1, you have access to a fully stocked gym. And by fully stocked, I mean a squat rack, a bench press, barbells, dumbbells, and plates. Number 2, you understand how to mimic the functional human movement patterns and translate them into the weightlifting alternatives. Number 3, you're willing to learn and to use proper technique at all times. Number 4, you desire to build a lot more muscle mass than what is possible with calisthenics. And number 5, you desire to isolate very specific muscles. Listen, I know that a lot of people only want to get a six-pack and get biceps, and that's totally fine. What do I recommend that you should do? I recommend that you actually do both. Incorporate calisthenics and weightlifting into your training. This is the best way to develop the strongest, most healthy overall physique possible. Do you want to learn how I use both calisthenics and weightlifting in my workout routine? Then head on over to thewhitecoattrainer.com and check out our workout programs. In there, you'll be able to see all of the types of training that my wife and I use and how we develop the physiques that we have. If you like this video, make sure to share the video, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.